Jon Stewart was a doll. I say that because he's incredibly short, very small man. He would often make fun of me for being so tall, and I would often just point out that he was short. Wouldn't need to make fun, the jokes write themselves. I'm speaking like he's passed away. He's not, he just doesn't return my calls. Hi, I'm Jordan Klepper, and Esquire has asked me to explain some things about my life and career, so let's dive in, shall we? How many hours a day are you on Twitter? Do you detox? I tried a Twitter detox. See, this is what social media does to your brain. F up. I tried to detox from Twitter. In fact, the new year, I did a stoicism challenge. And one of the things I had to do was put my phone away. And it was the hardest day of my life. It's the best thing you could do. Dear God, if you're watching this on a phone, throw it away. Slam it on the ground, or send it to me, I'll resell it and keep the cash. What would be your strategy to beat Mike Lindell in a pillow fight? Oh, Mike Lindell is a tricky guy. Beating him in a pillow fight, difficult. I don't know who's stronger. I think if you want to lure Mike Lindell into a pillow fight, there's one thing you have to do. Bring a camera. If you turn on a camera, Mike Lindell will appear out of nowhere. Try it at home. If you have a camera, turn it on. Within seconds, you'll have Mike Lindell in front of that camera. Then you're free to engage in a pillow fight. I can't tell you how to win, I can just tell you how to get him in the ring. What's the difference between Canadian freedom truckers and American freedom truckers? Canadians are nicer. I don't want to lean into the niceness, but it is true. They were a little bit more focused than American truck drivers. I don't think American truck drivers have figured out exactly what they're driving their trucks for. Hopefully when they reach their destination, they'll understand what the cause is. Plus you gotta give it to Canadian truck drivers. They were outside in Canada in the winter, and that's intense. Chris Evans. Who is Chris Evans to me? Chris and I go way back to me knowing about him and to him never knowing about me. I'd like to think of him as a less attractive younger brother. Are we both suave men with debonair beards? Yes. Are we both incredibly successful? No. He is, obviously. When did I first meet John Kasich? Well, it was the pandemic and I was looking for a meet cute. And so, like all things pandemic, it was over a Zoom. And unlike most people, I spent most of my Zooms trying to hook up with the governor, platonically. And so Governor Kasich and I were put together on a Zoom. We started talking about a potential podcast, and lo and behold, we hit it off like gangbusters. So the governor, he likes to name drop U2 all the time. I think it's because he once got a free U2 album in his iPod, but he claims to have met Bono, something he says over and over again. But pretty cool band, Governor, U2, I'll have to look them up. What did I learn from working with Jon Stewart? Jon Stewart was a doll. I say that because he's incredibly short, very small man. He would often make fun of me for being so tall, and I would often just point out that he was short. Wouldn't need to make fun, the jokes write themselves. I'm speaking like he's passed away. He's not, he just doesn't return my calls. He was a lovely man, incredibly smart, and one of the things about Jon Stewart is he's incredibly decisive. When you're having to write a show every single day, you need to know what your opinion is, what you're gonna do with that opinion, and where the BS is, and that man can find it quicker than anybody else. What have you gotten from working with Trevor Noah? First of all, that's a great picture of me and Trevor. Trevor's a cuddler. Everybody knows that. Have I gotten a hoodie from Trevor? No, he's never given me any clothing whatsoever. That's fine. I bring my own hoodies wherever I go. I don't need his own bespoke hoodies. Trevor's incredible. He's got ice running through his veins. He stepped into a job that everybody was afraid to step into. Jon Stewart has huge shoes to fill, metaphorically. Again, very small man. Trevor, when I first met him, he walked onto that stage and he just executed immediately. He knows himself, he knows his point of view, he knows what he believes in, and he speaks from the gut. And that's one of the things I respect most about him. The second thing is that he's my boss and he pulls the strings to my contract. Craziest story from one of my field segments, I witnessed an insurrection, which was strange. For a little bit of context, we live in a country called America and a bunch of people tried to overthrow the working democracy. What was strangest about that day, January 6th, is I talked to a man wielding a pitchfork and he was irate. Suddenly he was interrupted by another man who was even more irate, and then the pitchfork man said, "Whoa, hold up, I speak for myself," thus making the pitchfork man the more rational one. That's kind of what that day was like. Have you ever been legit scared during an interview? I'd like to say I've never been legit scared during an interview, but I'm always sort of living scared of the world around me. I think you have to understand about some Trump rallies is they're poorly executed as far as sound systems go. And I went to one where the sound systems were literally a mile apart. It was in Washington, D.C. And if you weren't within about 100 feet of the stage, you couldn't hear anything, which meant there were thousands of people with nothing to do. And when you put up a microphone in front of the face of somebody, it draws attention. I started making some jokes, and suddenly one people turned into 3, turned into 5, turned into 40 really quick. Security said it's time to put down your cameras, and we ran down an alley. How often do you get recognized when you go to events these days? I get recognized a fair amount when I go to rallies. And you'd be surprised, people usually do want to engage with me. I get a fair amount of people who are like, yeah, no way, you're full of shit. Fair enough. I get some other people who are like, I know what you're gonna try to do to me. You're gonna try to ask me what I believe and I'm gonna get you. And they try, and we talk, and I ask why, and often it doesn't go super great for them. And sometimes they just look at me and they're like, that's Chris Evans. I wanna talk to that guy. Do you ever get reporter's guilt? Reporter's guilt. Do I get reporter's guilt? I empathize towards folks. People go to rallies, they get a part of causes because they want to feel a sense of belonging. We all want that. But sometimes when I go to these rallies, I realize the people I'm talking to have been armed with an answer, but not a follow-up answer. And so that's where I perhaps feel most bad. How Chicago comedy prepared Jordan Klepper for Comedy Central? Chicago comedy is amazing. I moved from Kalamazoo, Michigan to Chicago because it's the birthplace of improv comedy. And the best thing about improv comedy is it teaches you how to listen, it teaches you how to say yes. And when I started working at The Daily Show, you realize that's exactly what you need to do at the top of any morning. You start, you get the information in the news, and then you say yes to everybody's ideas. It's not about figuring out what the best idea is right away. It's about getting all of the ideas and brainstorming. The second half of the day becomes the stand-ups mindset, where you have to start editing and making decisions. And so that improv sense, that works at the beginning of the day, and that stand-up sense, it works at the end. Thank you for listening. If you want to hear more of me talking, you can find it. I'm doing a podcast right now, Kasich and Klepper, with Governor John Kasich. So listen to us talk about important things and me make fun of a person who tried to run for the highest office in the land. It's available on wherever you get your podcasts. So go forth and pod.